hear about are interestingly very parallel and similar to the ones that we hear about in our brick and mortar practices. A lot of low-level depression, a lot of anxiety, a lot of isolation and loneliness. And these are things that are unique not to an expat community. I think we see this more within our own host countries, certainly during the pandemic. I think the difference is that as an expat, people are more inclined to come into care a little bit earlier, because typically when someone might be feeling a little depressed or a little bit anxious, they have a realm, a big continuum of coping skills they can implement that might include spending time with their girlfriends or family members, or maybe going for a run and exercise, or I don't know. When I lived in Virginia, it was great to go to Target for a couple of hours just to kind of zone out and see what was going on. And that's not something that I have access to none of those things. Or right when we move, we might not have access to any of those things. We don't know where the safe running routes are. We might not have friends yet. We might have to adjust and recalibrate how we stay in touch with our family members. There might not be a Target. So I think that to that degree, people are more apt to come in for care a little bit earlier because their coping skills, they don't have access to the same ones. So they might be a little bit sooner to come in and seek support in therapy. I think that most specifically, probably there's the change related to the pandemic. And I think there's two pieces there. One, I think that therapy has become much more mainstream. Many more people are inclined to access care and support in therapy. And the second piece, for our work with Truman Group, it's always been remote, long before the pandemic. And so the pandemic itself didn't necessitate a huge transition of our workforce. We were always remote. And so, but I do think that's come out of the pandemic is the normalization of remote care. I think that people are much more inclined. I used to have a lot of conversations about how do you navigate the site that we use, or does it really work? And I find that we're not having those conversations. But clearly, remote care is something that does work. There were studies that spoke to this long before the pandemic, but I think with the high rate of utilization, it's a much more accepted form of medical care.